Вас звинуватять в тому, що
You'll be accused of finishing off an already not fully functional parliament.
Maybe let's turn the logic around. Don't commit corruption crimes, and there will be no questions from the National Anti-Corruption Bureau.
In the president's office, a lot of people are currently under investigation.
Наші динозаври корупційні.
These are our corrupt dinosaurs who think that it's impossible for this agency to act independently and that no one gives it instructions. People use their excessive influence without any system of control in order to use other civil servants or state enterprises for personal enrichment or other corruption crimes.
A progressive bribery system.
It's the Ukrainian people who need the fight against corruption. It weakens us, including in the face of the external enemy, because corruption is a tool of Russian propaganda.
Is Ukraine a corrupt country? Last year, Ukraine was hit by two major scandals. During the summer, the government, together with the president's office, attempted to strip the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine of its independence. The bureau, which is tasked with investigating high-profile corruption, was able to maintain its independence only following a popular protest. In November, the independent bureau was able to uncover a $100 million corruption scheme in which several ministers and president's friends were involved. In her interview with the head of NABU, Mr. Semen Kryvonos says that he doesn't think Ukraine is corrupt. He actually points to the work of the agency as a result that the country is trying to get rid of corruption. But before we jump into the interview, please consider becoming a member of the Kyiv Independent. Your support is what allows us to do our work. Thank you.
А можете дати коротеньку?
Could you give us a brief update on what is currently happening with this case?
Before answering this question, I'd like to set a framework. I cannot comment in great detail beyond what we have already made public at the stage of announcing suspects, because the investigation is ongoing, detectives are working, and a significant amount of the information involved is sensitive. What I can say is the following. After the searches conducted on September 10th and the first notices of suspicion were issued, the circle of individuals implicated has expanded. As you know, the former Justice Minister and former Energy Minister has been formally notified of suspicion. He was detained and is currently being held in a pre-trial detention center as a preventive measure. At this stage, following a large number of searches, investigators have seized a large number of digital storage devices, so-called black accounting records, and other evidence. Detectives are now carefully analyzing everything that was obtained, mobile phones, computers, data storage devices, and cross-referencing this with the records already in their possession. Most importantly, they are cooperating with foreign jurisdictions and partner countries. Through international legal assistance, they are working to trace all transactions and the flow of funds and establish every detail that can be uncovered within the scope of this case. By the way, as a result of this cooperation, the former Energy Minister was notified of suspicion. That is, as a result of receiving a response from our international partners, revealing certain circumstances, how the trust was created, and how certain legal entities were registered.
You also said that the number of individuals implicated has expanded. There are several people who were known from the very beginning, well, at least they were mentioned, namely Mr. Umerov and Mr. Yermak. Mr. Umerov and Mr. Yermak have not been notified of suspicion, and in Mr. Umerov's case, there were not even any searches conducted. Are Mr. Umerov and Mr. Yermak currently considered implicated in this case?
Again, we comment only on what has already been made public as part of the case. Such rules are in place to avoid harming the investigation. This, again, I emphasize, is related to the protection of criminal proceedings and the protection of evidence. I can say that the pretrial investigation is ongoing and detectives are working very, very actively. Regarding the former defense minister at that time, it was publicly discussed that there is a suspicion that the head of the criminal organization you mentioned had influence over the former defense minister. The former defense minister himself is not a suspect as of now. I would like to explain to our viewers that I cannot, by law, mention names here at all. Therefore, I use either former positions or current titles held by certain individuals. Because naming them would violate the presumption of innocence, it would also harm the criminal proceedings and could be used by defendants.
If we look at the other names, they are ministers. But it is, in fact, the second person in the country, Mr. Yermak. He is the most influential person here. Do you understand that because there were searches and there are no suspects, it is you that people are looking at now? Will you bring this case to the end?
First, we bring all cases to an end where there is sufficient evidence. We do not differentiate based on level of influence or political preferences. Therefore, we are moving forward. We will comment when we have the appropriate procedural grounds to do so.
President Zelensky personally says in almost every interview that he is facilitating the work of NABU and facilitating this investigation. How exactly is the president facilitating you?
Here, in my comments, I would like to focus on relations with the President and the President's office, as defined by law. The law states that the National Anti-Corruption Bureau must report to the Cabinet of Ministers, the President of Ukraine, and the Verkhovna Rada, in particular the relevant parliamentary committee, once every 2 years. I think that if we are talking about facilitating, we have a whole package of reforms, including those related to the rule of law and our accession to the European Union, as well as a large number of issues and concerns related to strengthening the anti-corruption infrastructure, creating an independent oversight of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, and granting the right to autonomous wiretapping. And I think that in this context, a lot will depend on the President, because his party has a majority in Parliament, and he can submit fast-tracked draft laws. This is where we can cooperate.
Did you ask him to submit these laws?
He recently initiated the ratification of the Convention on Combating Foreign Bribery, which applies to the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. This convention was recently ratified by 299 votes in the Verkhovna Rada. This is an important step toward our entry into this organization in general. It was submitted by him. This document was actually prepared by us as a working group of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau with partners. And yes, he submitted this. I personally did not ask for it. The representatives of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau worked with representatives of the President's office on developing a plan for accession to the OECD. And I think that's based on the results of this work, a decision was made to submit it to the Verkhovna Rada.
Як взагалі ви пояснюєте ситуацію?
How do you generally explain the situation where we have in the office of the president, well, I can't say the majority, but a lot of people who are currently under investigation?
I can explain this, among other things, by the efficiency of the work of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. Institutionally speaking, this may be due to certain individuals who have already been notified of suspicion, abusing their powers for corruption purposes, for example, and under conditions of insufficient control. But this is a political issue. I think I am here to answer it as follows. We have state institutions, executive authorities, and law enforcement agencies. The question here is about influence over these institutions. This means that those institutions like the Anti-Monopoly Committee and any law enforcement agencies, with the exception of NABU, do not have sufficient guarantees of independence and institutional stability, for example, in order not to fulfill someone's request, not to be under political influence, not to perform tasks assigned by people who do not have the corresponding legal authority, but do have the influence, political influence. So this issue is probably related to the fact that we need to build and develop the independence of institutions and law enforcement agencies, so that if they are asked to participate in corruption, for example, to cancel a tender, if we talk about one of the deputy heads of the President's office, or when state-owned enterprises are asked to overstate their electricity consumption, they should not carry out tasks from such people. They don't have to obey without question, say, yes, we will do it, and then end up in these criminal groups and be held accountable just like those who set these tasks.
So who assigns tasks to them then?
In one particular case, according to the investigation, I emphasize, there was either a request or a task to the Anti-Monopoly Committee to cancel some tenders, and an undue benefit was provided for this. This concerns one of the deputies of the head of the President's office. Regarding another deputy using his power, he tasked representatives of Ukrenergo, the guaranteed buyer, and other state-owned enterprises to account in their records for the electricity that was not actually supplied. People used their excessive influence without any system of control in order to use other civil servants or state enterprises for personal enrichment or other corruption crimes. This is the story.
Not many media outlets are doing the work that we do. Some don't have the exclusive access that we have, others are just not interested in the fight against corruption in Ukraine. For us to continue our work, please consider becoming a member of the Kyiv Independent. Your support is what keeps us going. Thank you.
Тут просто багато.
There are a lot of questions about the parliament. Let's talk about it a little. We recently learned that both the government and some ruling party lawmakers are very upset about NABU. They say that they cannot now adopt any European integration laws or laws that our Western partners, the International Monetary Fund, or anyone else require of us because NABU will come after them. They also say that the bribery system that exists has always existed because they have low salaries, and so it simply helps them work. Can you please comment on lawmakers' claims that laws are not actually being passed in Ukraine because of you?
It's an interesting question. I think I want to make it clear right away. NABU does not come after lawmakers for voting on European integration laws. And in general, NABU does not come after anyone for voting on anything, because this is within the scope of lawmakers' authority. NABU comes when they take bribes for it. In this criminal proceeding, several lawmakers were made suspects for receiving undue benefits for voting on various bills, and there was differentiation in the amounts. It depended on the number of votes cast, as well as on attendance.
A progressive bribery system.
Yes, this is, if we talk specifically about this criminal proceeding, but in general, we are committed to normal communication with the Verkhovna Rada, and we are in favor of the parliament voting for European integration laws for the development of anti-corruption infrastructure, as well as for what the International Monetary Fund requires.
And they say, don't investigate us for this, and then we will vote for this?
Look, you can't not investigate someone if that person has committed a corruption crime. This should be completely out of the discussion, because if we differentiate that we don't investigate someone if they vote, then we need to end this conversation here. That would make us part of the political process, which is absolutely illegal on our part. No, this is my public position now on behalf of the agency, that we are in favor of lawmakers voting for European integration laws. We are ready to cooperate, to enter into a dialogue with them on this issue at the working level in a legal manner. As for the investigation of corruption crimes and the idea that if you don't investigate us, we will vote, maybe let's turn the logic around. Don't commit corruption crimes, and there will be no questions from the National Anti-Corruption Bureau.
I'm just curious, how many deputies are currently under investigation in total?
If I'm not mistaken, somewhere around 45 people from this convocation.
So we have a parliament that cannot be re-elected due to the full-scale war. We have some seats in parliament that are vacant, and we also have 45 lawmakers who...
Approximately.
Well,
I can't give an
approximately, more or
exact
less.
figure right now because we need to check our data. Some of them have already been convicted.
Aren't you afraid that you'll be accused of finishing off an already not fully functional parliament?
I want to say again, we are outside the political process. We do our job.
No one is outside the political process.
We do our job. That is, if there is information about a crime, detectives must investigate it. This is our obligation, our duty, and our jurisdiction. Article 216 of the Criminal Procedure Code states that we must investigate corruption crimes committed by lawmakers. How can we be accused of doing our job? And on the other hand, how can we not do it if we have the relevant information? And I want to say, and it is very important to understand that information is entered into the Unified Register of Pre-Trial Investigations. That is, a pre-trial investigation is initiated exclusively by the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, and he approves almost all procedural and investigative actions throughout the entire criminal proceeding.
Okay, do you have any data, or maybe tapes, that prove that several dozen lawmakers take bribes?
We can't comment. We can only comment on the very fact of issuing notices of suspicion. I want to emphasize this again. I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay, but there are now two big cases. There is one case about lawmakers taking bribes to vote for bills that the coalition needs. And there is another separate case, the Tymoshenko case, where lawmakers take bribes to vote against what the coalition needs. In the Tymoshenko case, the person under investigation is the one who allegedly gives these bribes, Mrs. Tymoshenko. In the case where they vote for what the president's office or the government needs, the person who gives bribes is not under investigation. We have information that this is because the prosecutor general is sabotaging the opening of a case specifically against the person who gives bribes to pass laws that the government needs.
I can't comment now on whether the Prosecutor General is sabotaging this or not. If we encounter any obstacles, why do we very often go public with the position of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau? Because there is a lot of attention, firstly, to the cases. Secondly, we are in a situation where sometimes only publicity and, say, public discussion of a particular problem works, because then society comes to our defense. Therefore, if we encounter any insurmountable obstacles during this pretrial investigation, and if we have enough evidence, we will definitely inform Ukrainian society. It is too early to say anything at all. I will limit the information as much as possible in the interests of this investigation.
Have you had conversations with European officials about whether you need to distance yourself from Parliament somewhat and let them vote on the laws needed to join the European Union?
No, I haven't, not once. According to my information, individual representatives of the Parliament communicate with our partners, including the European ones, conveying the idea that we have somehow broken the Parliament or something else. The only idea that we conveyed to representatives of various European institutions is that we haven't broken anything, we're doing our job, we've already said that. Any claims that our partners tell us what to do or what not to do are a myth and conspiracy. It is very important to understand this. We are not under the influence of Brussels or Washington, I can tell you this with absolute certainty. We have partner relations with representatives of the United States, both at the law enforcement level and at the State Department level, where we exchange experience, where they fund programs related to the professional training of our detectives. The same goes for our European partners. But no one gives us any instructions whatsoever. I generally think that this is unacceptable. I simply cannot even imagine a situation where someone from an embassy comes to me and tells me what to do or what not to do. These are our corrupt dinosaurs who think that it's impossible for this agency to act independently and that no one gives it instructions. Someone must be behind the Midas case or some searches. As one of our suspects recently stated, it's the world oligarchate, probably to avoid mentioning the Europeans or Americans.
This is something new.
This is a hint at, I don't even understand what the world oligarchate is. Soon it will be some reptilians. Look, we work in the interests of Ukrainian society. We are an agency created by Ukraine.
Well, there is an understanding that previously Brussels and Washington, especially Washington, were the biggest defenders of the fight against corruption in Ukraine. That is, if some government, whether this one or the previous one, or this president or the previous president, wanted to somehow harm independent institutions, then there was support from there, from the West. They said, let's not put pressure on, for example, NABU. It seems like that is no longer the case now, because the US administration is currently completely uninterested in fighting corruption in Ukraine.
I can answer you this way. From the very first day of my tenure, I have been 1000% convinced of only one 100% defender of the anti-corruption infrastructure as such. This is in Ukrainian society, the Ukrainian people, because it's the Ukrainian people who need the fight against corruption. We need to develop, we need to clean up this post-Soviet, post-colonial legacy and become stronger. Who needs this? It is us, you, me, our children. Because corruption kills their future, the future of our country. It weakens us, including in the face of the external enemy. Because the more we strengthen our institutions by destroying corruption schemes and returning money to the budget, or saving it by blocking corruption schemes, the more we will protect our state institutions and our society from Russian influence. Because corruption is utilized by Russia, among others. This is a tool for Russian propaganda and Russian influence.
Many lawmakers do not like what you are doing, and there are a lot of former ministers and officials who are under investigation. Are you facing any pressure now?
There is information pressure, certainly information campaigns. We observe them all the time. If we talk about pressure, we always work under conditions of a certain level of pressure and extremely close attention.
If the president comes to you tomorrow and says, I want to help you, we need to fight all corruption, and you can ask him for help, what would you like the president to do? Maybe introduce some draft law to help you do your job?
I would ask to support all anti-corruption laws related to European integration. I would not think exclusively about NABU and SAPO. I would think about what role NABU and SAPO play in the European integration process. I would ask him to support all this so that we can become a member of the European Union faster.